Well, good evening. We'll call to order the November 11th Tipton Community School Board meeting to order. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and our vision statement being led by Kim.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Empowered, future-ready students who are prepared for a lifetime of opportunity and success.
All right. Next on our agenda is what we like to call Tell Me Something Good. This is an opportunity for the board to reflect on something positive they've seen in the school or on the grounds or with our students since we last met. So with that, I'd open up the floor to Tell Me Something Good. I'm happy to start us off with, if you're just, since there's a lot of people here, I'll run my commercial. Just down the road from us, or down the next building over, we're putting on, I think it's the Little Mermaid Junior, and we have a ton of our elementary and middle school and maybe half a ton of our high school kids in there. And it is just fantastic to see all these kids. Like some of these young kids are memorizing 50 and 60 lines in choreography and blocking, and it is amazing. And so I would encourage you on the 21st or the 22nd, there's a couple opportunities to see it. We'd love for you to come down and support the kids and to support Ms. Wallen and Ms. Haynes and all the people that help us. And Mr. Leach, thank you for the auditorium and all the things that go into making it happen. But I'm stage managing this one, and just to see these kids, this is now 2 weeks every night from 6 to 9. And they're where they're supposed to be, doing what the directors don't. It's just amazing. So I wanted to let people know that that was going on and encourage you to come out and support the kids. All right. Well, from there, we'll move on to our Blue Future Awards, and I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. So who's going first? All right, John, you're up. All right, I did that last time and cut him off. So.
I have 6 people who I want to join. So if I could have the entirety of our Tipton Community School Corporation school nursing staff come on up, that would be wonderful. Okay. In case you don't know these wonderful ladies who are joining me, I have Miss Debbie Emberton, who is traditionally down at the elementary. Our newest, Beth Roach. I've got Nurse Day. I can't call them anything except for Nurse Day, Nurse Gillum, and Nurse Mankey, because they're the ones who I get to interact with. So that's what I call them in front of all the students. And then leading this wonderful ragtag team, we've got Nurse Susie, okay? Oh, there you go. Give her a round of applause there. So when I was thinking about Blue Future Awards for this month, the first people that popped in my brain were our school nurses. Not only because I don't know the difference between a cold and a flu, and they can tell me those sorts of things, but also just because I've had a lot of moments happen as we're moving into that time of the year where students are getting sick, where I've just been really grateful for these wonderful women and the care that they give to our kids. So beyond, the normal things that a school nurse does, helping students to develop healthy hygiene habits, making sure that they are maintaining, of course, in our school clinics, stringent medication regimens of students, diagnosing the, numerous health issues that come up, and just to name a few, being the first responder to seizures, anaphylactic shock, panic attacks, vomiting, menstrual cycles, and lice, all of which have happened in the last month or so, okay? These women, they just do it all. Now, that is all well and good. That's the job of a school nurse. The thing that I think separates our school nurses from other school nurses that I've seen is that these are women who, when they are doing their job, when parents send their kids to Tipton Community School Corporation, they send their kids to us hoping that they know that their kids are going to be taken care of as if they themselves were there. And I know that all of us here are people who have our own kids, who we've seen them in their moments when they're at a low point. And I watch, and especially I'm going to just extol the virtues of the 3 that I really get to see a lot. I watch these women as these kids are coming in and they're not feeling great, they're feeling low, and they've got a sore throat, and they just have that sensitive touch to the kid of just saying, hey, what's going on with you right now? They kind of, for a moment, they're co-parenting with the parent, what's going on, how can I help, how can I support? You don't have a fever and you're not throwing up, so what is it going to take for you guys to get through the day? Do we need to call home? How do we help and support you as you're going through that? It doesn't matter who is in the clinic at Tipton Middle School. I know that they're going to be taken care of with that sensitive, kind, caring, loving touch through thick and thin. And of course, while I'm specifically talking about the three that I get to see on a daily basis, I know that Nurse Susie, like I said, is the ringleader here, as Nurse Roach is going to be joining us at Tipton Middle School. And as I've worked with Nurse Emberton, who now is at the elementary but used to be at the middle school more, it's just amazing that no matter what's going on, they're all going to take care of our kids as if they were their own. And I just think that that's something we're celebrating. So our TCSC nursing staff, everyone. Susan, Nurse Gillen, there we go. I'm out of order. Sorry, I'll get back to you. And approach. I'll make sure over there, right here. Come on over, ladies.
That way we don't have to move, right?
Yeah, there we
Take
go.
over that.
Thank you all. Tonight I have the honor of presenting the Blue Future Award, which celebrates something that's at the heart of our middle school growth. Growth in grades, in test scores, but also growth in confidence and maturity, and the choices that we make every day. It's about students who discovered the best versions of themselves and shown us the best versions that they can be. At this time, I'd like to invite our Blue Future Award recipients come forward: Cash Halton, Owen Terrell, and Bailey Shinlove. And we'll start with Cash. Cash has grown into a student others look up to. He's engaged, hardworking, and breathes a positive energy wherever he goes. He's matured into someone who gives their best and leads quietly by example. Owen, when we first talked about this award, Owen's name came up right away, and that says a lot about the impression that he's made. He's built strong connections with teachers and classmates, and he's the kind of student everyone enjoys having in class: kind, dependable, and always respectful. Bailey. At the start of the year, Bailey might not have been too excited to come back, but what a turnaround it has been for her. She's shown enthusiasm, positivity, and perseverance, use her energy to lift others up and to make great choices. When I told Bailey she was getting this award, I told her it's because she's one of my favorite students and that I needed her to act like I was one of her favorite people. And she's doing a great job of that tonight. Cash and Bailey, you've each shown great growth, great maturity, and we are very proud of you. And please join us in congratulating these three wonderful students. Yep.
I'd like to invite the 2025 Sectional 38 soccer sectional champs to come forward. The whole team, all of you, come on up. This is kind of new facing you guys. This isn't the whole team, or this would be even more impressive if they could do what they did with just this number. So for this month, I wanted to take the time to recognize the boys soccer team. They did win sectionals, which we hosted, which meant that they had to play Delphi, which they defeated 6-0. Carroll 2-0, and then Taylor, which was a pretty tough battle at 3-1. So if you're able to come watch any of those games, you know how much time and effort, energy, and this is a passionate group of guys that I mean, you could just tell the product on the field was. I mean, they loved each other and they wanted to be super successful. So they did that and then went up to Faith Christian. That didn't quite go as well, but I still want to celebrate the fact that for a half of that match, they were grinding. And I mean, like, every time they attacked, it seemed like we had an answer for at least a solid half. And then, you know, we get better for next year. So it was a great season. They finished 14-3-3 over the year, and just was first sectional championship for Tipton High School. So wanted to recognize since 16. Okay. So I want to recognize Coach Tragesser and congratulate him on sectional championship. So congratulations. There's one thing. And we'll get to the picture.
Great job. Congratulations. Oh.
Come on up.
Evan.
Come on down. Yep. So the theme for this month's meeting is sectional champs. So who you have here is Evan Coe. He was Tipton's #1 singles player for the high school team this year, and he was able to be the individual sectional champion, and then advance to the regionals in the individual side of the tournament. He also, just because Evan's just a great kid all around, I mean, we could celebrate him just for that, but all 3 years that he's played tennis, he's finished with all state honors, had a 13-6 record individual this year, which Coach Dolzel said is one of the best individual records that we've had for some time. And then she highlights just how great of a leader Evan is. So just wanted to take a minute to congratulate Evan Coe on individual sectional championship.
There you go, Evan.
All right, I have to apologize. I'm dressed down a little bit. Just came from baseball practice tonight. So the Blue Future Award for Tipton Elementary this month, I would like to give to Valerie Watson, our speech pathologist. If she could come forward, please. Valerie serves mostly our primary grades for speech pathology, and some of the things that she's involved in is our multi-tiered system of support team. A couple years ago, she came to administration, asked if she could start speech RTI, which is response to intervention, which goes right along with the MTSS team. Some other things that she does is kindergarten roundup, screenings. One thing that she's come to us this year asking is if she could do some outreach to local preschools, which was one thing that we were thrilled with, because the more that we can get into our local preschools, not only our own preschool, but local preschools, to service them and identify students that may need speech services, the better they're going to come prepared to Tipton Elementary School. But the thing that I think that sticks out about Valerie the most, and to me is the most important, is that kids absolutely love working with her. There's not one kid that doesn't have a smile on their face when they go in or out of her classroom. And that, to me, as a principal, warms my heart the most out of any of this stuff. So I'd like to present to you Valerie Watson.
Thank you. Well, if you were here just for the Blue Future Awards, this is your signal to leave before you get into the consent agenda and net assessed value discussions. So, but do thank you for coming out and supporting the kids and the recipients. Thank you. Great job, guys. Good job, David. All right, next item on our agenda would be comments from the community. We had none sign up this evening.
Is Laura okay?
We don't know. We don't know.
We haven't
but
seen her in a
I
while.
know, so. So we had none, so moving on to that is the consent agenda. Within your packet, we have the approval of tonight's agenda, the minutes from our executive session and work session and regular session that was October 14th, and our special session on November 3rd. We have the approval of claims from October 24th and November 7th for payroll and accounts payable claims for the month of November. We have the approval of the personnel report, which I will read at the conclusion, and approval of field trips. We have seniors high school Mexico trip for 2026 that was in your agenda packet. And then the approval to accept some donations, and those were listed in your packet as well. So I'd be interested in a motion and a second to approve our consent agenda for the evening.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. Our personnel report for November 11th, on the certified staff, we had none. Classified staff, we had the resignations of Nicholas Jackson, third shift custodian at the elementary school, and Thomasita Boyer, the cafeteria worker from the high school. Recommendations, Joseph Harris for third shift custodian in the elementary school, and the recommendation for Shane Clark to be a permanent sub bus driver for the remainder of sick leave. And then on the ECA staff, we have the approval of volunteers Kyle Bird, Tim Davis, and Justin Nasser for volunteer baseball coaches. So that is the personnel report for November. With that being said, we'll move on to the superintendent's report, and Dr. Glaze, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I will invite Carrie to come up, and some of you may know one thing that we can always talk about with education, we are always in a state of change. And so I know that we've had some small discussions really about the change in diplomas, and that about the change in diplomas and just kind of how our should pop up now. And just how what we're currently offering can fit into that, and maybe some ideas on what we may need to consider in the future in order for us to meet the criteria for the new pathways and the new diploma. So I'm just going to turn it over to Carrie. We are so fortunate to have Carrie. My goodness, she just rocks it. So I'm going to turn it over to her.
Ryan, didn't we pass a resolution that she couldn't come without the dog?
Oh, that's right. That's right. We missed Indy.
Where's the puppy?
I've got to bring treats to Indy because he doesn't really pay any attention to me because I don't have treats. So I've learned that that's something I need to do.
He's a sucker for food.
Yeah.
And I get treats in his office, so you'll have to see him. So, all right. So I did present our PD on Friday to the high school diploma. I asked Dr. Glaze if the same presentation would be fine. So I will tell you, it is a little bit teacher centric, just as we asked the different departments to kind of take a look at the changes that were implemented and then how that's going to affect each department, kind of their wish list, if you will, on how they would like to see their department kind of adapt these new changes or adopt those, and then, knowing that the wish list may not be completely fulfilled, but it's at least it's a place to start as we look to schedule for the next school year. So I did throw this up here. I'm not sure how well you guys can see it, but on the left is the current 440 diploma that you're probably pretty familiar with. It's been around for 30 years or so. So a lot of it really is the same, but on the right is the new Indiana-based diploma. And it does changes a little bit. It allows some flexibility within the new diploma. And then it's now our job to kind of figure out how we're going to navigate that flexibility. I kind of told them, I think I heard it on a webinar, so I'll give credit elsewhere, but it did say, with more flexibility comes more responsibility. More responsibility on the students to make the right choices, more responsibility on our part as counselors to, advise and guide them, and then responsibility from the school, just overall perspective, trying to get them to where they need to go. So a little bit of pressure here, but I've kind of outlined what this currently looks like if we stick with our 50 credits, which traditionally is what we've done since we're on the block schedule and have been on a block schedule again for 30-some years. Our students can earn 64 credits. So rather than going with the state's 42, 42 is pretty minimal where they can earn 64. So we've always bumped that to 50 as a high school graduation requirement. So providing that's still going to stand. Here's kind of how it's broken down. English is the same with 8 credits, just as it was. However, only English 9 is required. And then it becomes much more flexible. A communication focused course such as speech, journalism, debate, advanced speech. Those are just some interpersonal relationships that come to mind. Those, they have to have one communication focused course part of those English credits. Math is quite different. It used to be for the core 40, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. They removed that. They just made it to where it's Algebra 1, and then the flexibility can come in. So kind of this, I'll talk about SEALs here in just a minute. A kid that's maybe going in employment after high school and knows that, maybe takes a much different path than someone who's going to college and would expect them to at least complete Algebra 2, if not go on to pre-calculus or calculus. So deciding when those kids are going to decide that, and then they stay on that track, what happens if they change their mind. So trying to keep all these things in mind, knowing that 15-year-olds may not know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And then personal finance is now required as part of this new diploma. Moving on to science, traditionally it's been 6 science credits. Again, it's somewhat similar. Biology is a mainstay. And then after that, that flexibility comes in. The computer science, we have currently teaching computer foundations in the digital age. It's required within that STEM area. And then 2 additional lab sciences, plus 2 additional STEM focus. And so any math or any science course is a STEM course, but not any STEM course is a science or math course, right? So, we do have some engineering, for example, and that would count. We have our some ag classes with ALS animals, ALS foods. Those are lab ag science that count and fulfill either one of those, the science or the STEM focus. So we have a lot of flexibility there. Social studies is now 5 credits. U.S. history and government are similar to what they were. And then the world perspectives somewhat changes. Currently, we fulfill our social studies requirement with geography and history of the world. We may look to change that a little bit if possible, and maybe just go world history, was kind of what the social studies department had mentioned. And then also a 3rd or 4th year of a Spanish foreign language fulfills that requirement for the world perspective. So a student could technically meet that criteria by taking Spanish 3. But then on the flip side, colleges want really 6 credits from social studies. So if they don't count world language as social studies. So we kind of get into that dangerous area where we want to make sure we're giving our students what colleges want, if that's the route they're going. And so just kind of keeping that in mind. PE went from 2 credits to 1, and then health stayed the same. Preparing for college and careers, we currently offer that in the middle school. It's now a requirement, but it can still be offered in the middle school. And then that puts us at 20 personalized electives where students can fill those with their CTE classes. They can fill them with the fine arts, the world languages, work-based learning, internships, those type of things. So that's pretty much the rundown of the 50 credits. Questions on that?
I guess I would just want to ask you, like, if a student is wanting to pursue college, is there still a standard that schools are expecting that our guidance, offices would be redirecting them to out of all of the elective options that they have?
Absolutely. And so that's kind of where the seals are gonna come in. So they made it to like, this is the base diploma that you have to get these. And then kind of depending on your track that you want to do, whether that's college, employment, or enlistment, then there's kind of these seals that you could get to show that you're ready. So I would kind of equate it to the academic honors diploma, right? If we had the core 40, but then you could go for the academic honors diploma to show, hey, I'm ready for college. So that's kind of what I'll get into if that works. This is just another way of looking at it. And then that's, if they don't earn a seal, they're still on what we currently do, which is to meet box 2, which is employability skills, and box 3, which is a post-secondary ready competency. And so that's where our current students are meeting. And so if they don't earn a seal, they still have to do that. But then the seals, that's, you probably
Oh, I
heard
do
about.
remember.
The seals, right? So I know that's small, and I will talk about the main 3 honor seals. So Jennifer, to answer your question, we are going to start all of our students on the enrollment seal, just to keep, 1, it sets the highest standard, 2, it keeps every door open. And then by, probably junior year, they're like, and I know I'm not going to college. Okay, they've had 2 years of high school, they're a little older, they maybe have worked a job, they know what they want to do, and then we can say, all right, let's try to go the employment route or something. But starting our freshmen on the enrollment seal, we just feel like is the best route. And most of that is, they have to do it anyway, right? They have to take biology, algebra, those type of things. So they're kind of doing that already. And then at bottom point, it doesn't force 8th graders to, pick a seal when they're never stepped foot in the high school and say, this is what I want to do. So, so that's kind of our approach, at least right now. It's all still very new, right? So current freshman class is the class that starts all this. So here I've just kind of highlighted a traditional course sequence for the enrollment seal. That's for a student that might come in and say, hey, I want to go to college. Anything in yellow is really the main changes that we see. Kind of where does that speech or communications focused course go? Are we sticking with Indiana history and ethnic studies as an elective when they don't necessarily meet the social studies credit requirement anymore? Econ is off, personal finance is on. So there's just some changes there. And so that was more for departments of, some things to consider. Then on the right-hand side, that is if you're going to college, right? So that's going to say you do need 2 years of a world language. You do need your 6 social studies credits that colleges are wanting. Your 6 science credits, that C or better. So very, very similar to the current academic honors diploma that I think you guys are relatively familiar with. So again, that freshman year, it looks very similar to what we're doing now, right? They take their main courses, they take a principles course so they can, principles of business or principles of agriculture, or principles of, or technically, intro to engineering, principles of teaching, so we have different pathways that they could choose to try to fill those electives, and we would still encourage them to complete that concentrator. And then the next seal is that employment seal. So you can see here's where it starts to get a little different, just by the fact that anything like science, for example, right? It's biology. If you're going college, if you want the enrollment seal, you have to have chemistry. If you're going the employment seal, you just have to have biology, and then things can change. You could have ICP, you could have an animal science, in ag. You could do something in engineering. So just a lot more flexibility with the employment seal. Again, math can look quite different. They just need algebra, and then would they take geometry? Would they go on to take business math or technical math? How are they going to fill that the other 2 math requirements? So it does look a little bit different. Work-based learning would be a part of that. To get that seal, they have to complete 150 hours. That could be throughout all of high school. So it's not just like junior or senior year. If they do summer jobs, any of that, they can start counting hours for those seals. Yeah, and then completing the concentrator, like we mentioned.
Here, my question's up there. So the 50 credits, can you graduate with 50 credits?
Yeah, so I mean, we have 48. If you look at the 16 times the 3, it's going to give you 48. But we also have opportunities for students to earn a credit. Sometimes like jazz band, for example, comes to mind. Or they could take an extra online course throughout their junior year. Maybe they just take an elective online, and it gets them to that 50. So
3 years.
3 years, yeah,
But that wouldn't be college prep. Or
correct. I mean, it could, it's gonna be a little
It'd be
tougher
harder to get,
to get all those core classes, but we do have some students that have graduated in 3 years, with going to college as well, just doing a lot of extra coursework on their own.
And I will say, there's obviously gonna be a financial impact
I know,
to that.
Yes.
And again, you know, the state does offer a small incentive for early graduation.
not the
but
same as them being here.
not the same as
Not
them
the
being
same,
there. And
right.
again, we want kids, we want to prepare kids for whatever we need to prepare them for, but I think that's one of the concerns that I have, if kids are really ready to go out in the world at that age. And I don't know, I mean, that just worries me a little.
Those are my concerns when I look at this.
Yeah.
I mean, right, if they have a family business or they know what they want to do or
Right.
whatever. But, yeah, I mean, at 17 to,
And I will say from Mr. Leach and I have gone to a couple workshops, conferences, and I do feel like there is the push to get kids out. To be honest, that's the feeling I get, is just that let's narrow this down, and the kid that doesn't want to be in school, let's get them out and get them to the workforce, you know? So this would do it, and we're also battling the seniors right now, that they're done with school, right? They need a government class, they need another English credit, that's about all they need, so to get them to come to school on a regular basis it's not fun. I know Mr. Light.
we don't let them just come for the 1 or 2 classes they need. You're either here or,
Been doing a lot of things to try to keep kids around. But I do feel like.
and I know that's ebbed and flowed through our years in education, right? I
Absolutely.
remember being a freshman in high school and the seniors would roll in for a class and leave and come back. That went away before I became a senior, but
Yeah, so a lot of those kids, like Mr. Lee said, are in work-based learning, they're only here a half day anyway.
Yeah.
Sometimes those half days turn into full days that they're not here. So this is something that, you know, but a kid that really doesn't want to be here, try to make them stay, you know, and when there's not maybe what they see as valuable things, we could see it as valuable, but they may disagree. So that's something I think to consider, and maybe develop a stance on what we want with that. I think the financial incentive is 1,500.
Yes.
I believe.
And-
That's what I've seen.
And again, I just think we just need to take a good look and make sure if we do have kids that want to graduate in 3 years, you know, how we're setting them up to be successful. I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. And, but it's definitely a new world, so, up front.
Because truthfully, you could have a student who's 16 being done with school, right?
Good.
I mean, I'm just trying to think, Ben was 17 when he was done as a senior, so.
Right, yeah, if they're young, yeah, it could be pretty much
Good.
16. So yeah. That's that one. And then just the last seal is the enlistment service seal. This is primarily, I mean, you have 3 options pretty much when you graduate high school, right? Enroll in college, get a job at employment, or enlist in service. And so this one is kind of geared toward that, but right now, as a junior or senior is when it's required that they take this introduction to public service course. It's just a 1 semester course, but we don't have anyone licensed to teach it. So Indiana Online is currently offering that as a course. I know Heinz has talked about using some of their personnel, their service personnel, to be able to teach that. So I know that's in talks. But here is kind of what it would look like. It's similar to that employment as far as like less or more choices, I guess, more flexibility with the math and the science and such. And then they do have to score a 31 or higher on the ASVAB. They have an attendance goal there. Basically, you can't have more than, or you need at least one school year with 3 or less on excused absences. I believe is that one. And then they have to have a mentorship. So that's kind of is that tough one. How do we ensure consistent mentorship experience with the military personnel and or public safety officials? You know, I've tried working with our fire department, police department, and they're great, but if they're short-staffed, they can't take on, you know, a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid to job shadow or to intern when they're already trying to catch up their regular staff. So,
The other side of that too is a lot of times their liability insurance will not cover someone
Yeah.
who's 17.
right,
They have to be 18. And this is another complicated thing that's been thrown at us that we have to try to maneuver. And again, I would understand why the fire department or the police department would be reluctant to, have somebody younger than 18. I mean, so there's just a lot of challenges. We just have, there's a lot to figure out. And
Yep. And so those are the main ones. And there's always the joke, but wait, there's more. That's the Honors Seal Plus. That's just that extra layer, I guess. So as you can see with the enrollment seal, it would be all those things mentioned previously, but then they have to have that credential of value. Right now, we have about 5 students in the current senior class that would be eligible for an Honors Plus seal because they're going to get the Indiana College Core, which is that block of 30 credits from primarily IUK, our partnership, but it could also come through AP classes, Ivy Tech credits. But it's your core general classes, basically your first year of college. So we would have that. They've completed at least 75 hours of work-based learning, and then they've demonstrated this skill in communication, collaboration, and work ethic. So, that one is probably doable, but again, the Indiana College Core, we're looking at, maybe 5% of our class getting that. And then if we look at employment, kind of that same thing, you're looking at 650 hours as opposed to 150 hours. That market-driven credential, some of the points that they've assigned to some of these credentials are interesting. I won't get into all that, but I don't know how many we're going to get to meet that criteria. And then kind of same thing with the enlistment seal. We're already having some trouble with the regular one, so to go to the plus, really just a higher score on the ASVAB, but we still have to have that mentorship and such. So I think that pretty much sums it up. And then, yeah, just a funny picture of Homer here. It's kind of what I feel like. So, I tried not to bore you too much and try to give you the overview. We are going to be facing decisions. I know departments, one thing to bring up is if we are shifting gear, what about textbooks? What about curriculum material? And that would definitely be something that you guys would have to decide on, how we're going to try to fund those if we need to switch a science course, if we're switching a math course, for example, try to offer those. Any questions for?
With the enrollment honors plus seal, there was like a thing at one point where there was guaranteed enrollment to like certain
Yep.
universities.
Yes,
Is that
that's true.
still accurate, or are we still figuring that out?
Yep, it is. And so, yes, it is. I will say those students who are going to get that were
They were going to get in
They were going to get in anyway. So while it is nice, that you
But
could
that
say
doesn't
that,
actually.
it can be a little misleading. Or a student that wants to go to Purdue in engineering,
yes,
it doesn't guarantee admission into the College of Engineering, right? They get into Purdue, but they may not get into engineering, or they might get into IU. It's not the Kelly School of Business. So again, can be a bit misleading when you just hear it on the news and they say that. It's great. They can get into Indiana University if they have that.
But they would have anyways.
Yes.
but the nice part about it is, again, there's a requirement that universities have to take the dual credit. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they have to take the dual credit in the area that they've received it,
Mhm.
but that was kind of that compromise. If you remember when they were rolling this out, the president of Purdue really got involved.
Yeah.
And that's what created the seals. And they tried to beef up, the diplomas and again, I mean, I think that, I think there are some advantages to what happened with that. I think they actually made it better. So that was a good thing. But again, like you're saying, I mean, it's not like saying you're automatically going to be in the School of Engineering. I mean, but you may be, accepted to Purdue, but
Yeah.
yeah. So.
Yes. So we try to emphasize that with parents as well, because they just hear that part. My kid's going to get this, and they can do it, which to an extent is true, but could be a little bit misleading.
So my understanding is then we might have to be offering additional classes than what we offer now.
Yes.
Do we have any idea, a number or how many we think that we're increasing by?
What we got from departments, a lot of their ideas.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally building the plane here, guys.
Okay, so I mean, it's
I
like,
mean,
we'd
it's
like to
really,
offer this class.
you know,
It would just depend on, do we have enough students and,
Correct,
yeah,
Did you
what does that
start-
look
This
like?
year's freshman?
yes.
This year's freshman.
But they didn't really
Yeah, they didn't
finalize
finish
everything
it.
till
Mhm.
March when the scheduling is
Yeah.
essentially done. So again, that's why we did keep everyone freshmen basically.
And they put aside money if we have to change curriculum, right?
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
sure, I'm sure
Yeah.
they
You
did.
know that.
big money, big money.
Okay, just check. I figured.
Uh-huh,
I know how things work.
yes, yeah. So that's the worry too, on if we do away with ICP, for example.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's.
Yeah.
But what are we replacing it with? And do we have
Enough.
the textbooks and curriculum to do that?
To offer something different,
Mhm.
and then could you get divided between, like, 50% of students want ICP and 50% want the other,
Right.
and being able to offer it? Sure. Okay, thank you.
I just have two quick questions.
Yes.
Because I know I email Carrie all the time. So when she saw my mouth, she was like, oh my God. But the scholarship stuff's really complicated. But anyway, so the two things I worry about, we graduate a kid in 3 years and they go to the workforce and it isn't all that it's cracked up to be, and they want to go to IUPUI or whatever it's called now, or IUK or whatever. Does that 3-year degree, does that fit the admissions criteria for them, or would they have to get additional,
They
if they change their mind?
Correct. They could, if they went the employment route, if they went that employment route and let's say didn't take Algebra 2, for example, IUK, IUND,
Yeah.
they're gonna want a minimum Algebra 2. Bloomington or Purdue is gonna want pre-calculus or trig. So,
Yeah.
if they didn't do that, then yes, they may have to do like an Ivy Tech and kind of bridge that gap a little bit before IUND would take them.
It
Okay,
seems
so,
like colleges would have to be making accommodations because they're gonna lose students, to say,
Well,
if we can get
it's
more.
kind of my question was,
Right.
is that I think we're and I'm sure you do this, like, I'm not insinuating you don't, but we're sitting down with kids and saying, if you change your mind in 3 years, so it's these other hoops you have to jump through,
Mhm.
right? And so that's a little,
Yeah,
I'm not saying disconcerting, but I think it's something we need to be aware of for kids that want to say they want to graduate in 3 years, right?
And I-
And then one of the most frustrating parts of this job is the unfunded mandates. So they
Yes.
change all these things. So my question to you is, now you're tracking down internships and you're keeping track of kids, and you were doing all these things last year now you're doing more with the same amount of people. Are we staffed properly to do what? I mean, I know you could always use more people, right? But like, are we red line in your department as far as doing this well for the students?
I think it's gonna be taxing, yeah.
Okay.
I joke
Lot.
that when we go to the career fair tomorrow, I might be looking for a new job, so.
Yeah.
No,
There you go.
no.
Well, I mean, it's a question because we get hundreds of laws over the 2 years we've
Yes,
been here,
yeah.
and nobody pays us to implement those
Correct.
or do that. So my concern is that we're burning out really good people trying to keep up with this shifting sand.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something we would probably need to look at as we go into staffing discussions and things of that nature for subsequent years, to make sure even a part-time person
Yeah.
to help you with something, right?
yeah.
Like, right, pick up your laundry or something, whatever. But
Absolutely.
it seems to me like we're running really lean, to get kids that one-on-one, counseling that I think they need if they're making these kind of decisions.
Right.
You know,
And the tracking is terrible. I mean, it's been bad enough
Right.
trying to get the box 1, box 2, box 3, and now you're saying, okay, does this science class count for which seal does it count towards, and how do you track all these hours? And again, a kid changes their mind,
Yeah.
now they're on this seal, so yeah, I'm not overly excited, but I will say, I did ask teachers, for example, if they, within the business department, let's just use that, if they have some kids that are doing work-based learning and they're completing that concentrator through them, would they be willing to take on some of those students then? And they're kind of, there are kids, right? They're kind of in the counseling, but these are your kids. You're really taking these 15 that are business kids and you're tracking their hours. You're checking that this employment seal or this enrollment seal, whichever one, kind of an extra set of eyes.
Okay,
I don't want to put more on the teachers, but
Right.
if their schedule then would allow for that,
Yeah.
then maybe that's where we could use a little more reinforcement
Sure.
just from those people.
Okay.
So,
I think JAG helps a little bit
yeah,
as far as the work-based,
right.
but again, I agree with you, Rob. They're making this such a big thing to manage. I mean, it's a lot for counselors.
well, and what we don't want to do is take an unfunded mandate and take it out of the counseling department and give it to the teachers, because it's still unfunded, right?
Right.
So what I'm trying to figure out is how do,
Right.
if we ask them to do something extra, they should be remunerated for that, et
Sure.
cetera, right?
Yeah.
And if we're asking you to do more, we need to make sure you're properly taking care of it, that your staff is correct and that kind of thing. So just something for next year, we're gonna have to lean into, is to make sure we're balanced in that department, because this is, coming to us.
Yeah.
It's not something we're doing, but we need to respond to it. So,
Correct.
okay. Thank you. No more questions.
Okay.
All my scholarships are in, so you won't be hearing from me again.
That's great.
I will say though, like, one added thing, as like freshmen, like I have a freshman going through this, and Carrie and Talisha both did a phenomenal job, like being very transparent, like we only know what we know, and it's very little, and we're doing our best, and we're going to continue to help navigate it. Like they did a phenomenal job of like laying it all out as plainly as they possibly could, and thank you for that.
Thanks, Carrie.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Dog next time, right?
Yeah, dog.
Yeah, next time,
Have a good
Dog.
evening.
next time, Indy.
Okay, thank you. Lots of fun information there, and lots of things we're still gonna have to figure out, but we'll get there, I promise. Okay. So just kind of let you know on the re-roofing project, we're nearing the completion of the academic wing. If we hadn't had this little cold snap, it probably would have been done, but they've not been able to get a whole lot of work done this week since it snowed and it's a little cold, and we had some rain late last week. So that's a little bit behind. Auditorium will most likely start by the end of the month. So now these are the different, they've got the main line of the auditorium that kind of follows the same roof line as the academic wing. That is done. Now we're getting into the multiple roofs that are part of the auditorium. So that one is going to be very slow because there's a lot of seams, a lot of work up against the brick walls, some different things like that. So that one's going to be a slow process. And then once they have the auditorium done, then they'll do the vocational wing. And so they're hoping to be able to get to that. Again, this is all weather permitting, February or March. So we're kind of into the slow season on the roofing, and we also don't want them to be up there and get hurt. And we also want to make sure that it's not a big rainstorm or snowstorm while we're replacing roofs. So that tends to defeat the purpose. So chiller is set. We are waiting for, as you may know, we have graphics and technology that we use to operate our chillers and all of our HVAC system. And so we just have to wait for that update to happen. So then Dan would be able to do his magic from home if he needed to. So like, for instance, if it's cold in here, I would send him a text and say, hey, can you tick up the thermostat a few notches? And he does that. And so we're waiting for that to happen with this chiller. But other than that, it's pretty much ready to roll. I think it went as smooth as possible. Luckily, as soon as we got it in, didn't need it, but that's okay too. Kind of gives us an opportunity to make sure everything's set and ready to roll. So anyway, that's moving along fairly well. And so a good thing all the way through. We had a little bit of discussion last month in our executive session just about athletic foundation. And so essentially what we're looking at is the establishment of a Tipton Blue Devil Athletics Foundation. We would have a board of directors that are part of that. It cannot be the superintendent or any board members. That it has to, even though it is part of us, it has to be separate as far as the governing side of it. And again, just to kind of, we have about $1,500 in fees that it will cost through Churchill and Antrim to kind of get all the paperwork rolling. That includes applying for the 501c3 and all of those types of opportunities. Again, the purpose of the foundation will be kind of that independent nonprofit organization. And really the sole purpose is to provide financial support for the Tippin Athletics program. I know that Colin and Craig, were you part of that meeting with the boosters? Yeah. And he's met with all the boosters, kind of explained this. There have been some questions, but they feel like it's been favorable. So they feel like that there's not, this is a smart thing to do. It's probably something that is really going to make us better in the future, just to kind of think of things in this way. And we will have a great benefit at the school to have a 501c3 opportunity in order for us to do our checks. People are donating, we can run it through that. That way they can get all the tax credits they want and need. And it's just a good thing all the way through.
And we took advantage of the change in leadership in the athletic department. This is a best practice across athletic departments now, freeing up our CFO from having to be in the weeds on a lot of this stuff and giving independent governance and oversight to some of these functions, so it doesn't always fall, on us. So I'm really excited about this because it opens up a lot of funding opportunities for our athletics that we've been closed off to prior to that. So I think it's a good idea.
I agree. It doesn't take any board action, just basically informing you that this is what we're moving forward with. Once everything is established, then I'll present that information to you. And so basically what we have to get things rolling is just we have to have three members of the board of directors that we give to Churchill and Antrim, and then and then whatever we're going to call it. So I just put Tipton Blue Devil Athletics Foundation. If someone else has a better name, I'm okay with that too. But we can, again, we can get this rolling pretty quick. It does not take a whole lot of time to get all of the bylaws and everything written. The guy that does this for a lot of different organizations throughout the state. What will take the most amount of time is the 501c3. It's just a little bit of a bureaucracy thing for that to go through, but once it's done, it's done. So we'll keep you posted on that and keep that moving forward.
Well, is there anyone outside of athletics that's included in that? Like, I think of like a band boosters. Do they fall under that as well?
Specifically, we would be looking at just athletics. Not to say that you couldn't add them later if that was a desire. But I think right now we just need to get rolling for athletics. We need to expand it. We can expand it at that point. I don't think that's an altogether bad idea. Again, it's, I think, I feel better if we just got it going.
No,
and then
yeah, of
kind
course. I just was curious to know where that, like,
Right.
who that encapsulated at this time.
Okay, you've all been waiting for it. I can tell you're all excited. Okay, if you've had a chance, I did put this in the agenda a couple of weeks ago, just kind of talking a little bit about our net assessed value evaluation. And so if anybody comes up and says, hey, can you tell me something about this SEA1? This is your slide, okay? It pretty much has everything that is going on with SEA1. Honestly, it's a one pager. You can pretty much clearly tell. So again, we're going from an increase of 37% of the assessed value, and we're phasing in to 67% of the assessed value. That will be the homestead deduction. So the homestead deduction continues to increase. The 2% tax cap class, again, we're talking about apartments, long-term care facilities, agriculture. So they're going to phase into a 33% deduction. And my favorite one is the de minimis. I love that word. De minimis a business personal property exemption. This is the one that I believe is the big question mark for us, because this is really some uncharted territory in our taxing system. So this could have, they have an idea of what they think will happen. I have a feeling that this could be a little bit worse for us than what even policy analytics is anticipating. I hope I'm wrong.
Is that
But-
because of farm equipment?
Yeah.
And how expensive it is? Yeah.
and how long it could be depreciated out and
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
so, right. So we'll see. Maybe it won't happen. I mean, I don't blame people for taking advantage of it. That's not, that's not what I'm saying, but we just have to kind of wait and see how all that shakes out. And then the elimination of the deductions, again, this is kind of one of the things that is really, hitting us, particularly with lit and some of those other areas that are going away. So, just to kind of show a little bit of, kind of our tax base comparison. So obviously we have two incorporated parts that are in our school district, that of the city of Tipton and then Elwood. As you can see, the tax rate in those specific areas is pretty high. The unincorporated is fairly low. I'm sorry, we do have three, my fault. Kempton is the third. So again, the three highest are the incorporated areas within our school district. So it just kind of shows you, kind of where the rate is and then where the school falls in all of those rates. So the 85 cents is where we are. And then what else they have that is that they use to collect additional property tax revenue. So one of the things that's great about policy analytics is the fact that we get we get all of our taxing data down to the parcel. That doesn't happen with just anybody. So they have a very complicated formula they use to figure some of this out. But most of it is just a good relationship with our people at the courthouse and working with them and trying to get as much information as possible. So as we're looking at this, about 27% of the parcels in our school district are at the circuit breaker cap. So that means they're at the 1, 2, or 3%. Okay. That's actually not a bad number. The other thing that we want to consider with this is the fact that our median homestead assessed value continues to move up, which means that the houses that we have in our area are continuing to appreciate, which is what we want to have happen. And so it kind of gives you an idea here on the second circled area. So people that are at the 1%, as far as the number of parcels here that are at the caps. Okay. And just kind of gives you a general idea of where that is. So this is mostly going to be farmland and some of the other categories that we've talked about. This is pretty much going to be a residential. Okay. And this is going to be more of business like commercial, like, FCA would have been one of those. So, okay. So we have the gross assessed value, and then we have the net assessed value, which again is taking away all of those deductions. And then we have the net assessed value without TIF increment, okay? So when push comes to shove, when we're monitoring our assessed value, when we're looking at our assessed value, we are using this number of 893 million, okay? But the gross is here. So people will say, well, yeah, but you got blah, 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 blah. Well, no, we base everything on the net. That's how we determine our rates. That's how we determine the dollars that we get. And we take out all of this other money and then that's how we utilize our tax base or our tax dollars. So, just kind of taking a look at the gross assessed value, you'll notice there are two areas where it's gone down. Agriculture, that has more to do with how agriculture is calculated currently with the new assessment. And then the 16 is FCA. So that is the loss of that factory. So, neither one of those are a surprise. It's just information.
Will the FCA go up when that's up and running? If,
Potentially, if it goes.
it is still a tip, right? So it's still, is that a tip?
It's still TIF, but it would still have a positive rating
Impact
on the
that, but
growth.
It's not gonna,
Yeah,
it's limited.
because we're talking gross assessed, so it's going to have, we won't get that. But yes, the gross assessed value could go up. Unless things change. So in general, the gross assessed value outlook. So essentially what they're looking at, and they just do a great job of trying to project this out, and they're always very conservative. There's another company in the state that it was not Policy Analytics. There's another company that's in trouble because they are trying to present the same kind of information, but it looks a lot worse. And some municipalities and others have been talking about what they see, and then they found out there was a big error in their information. So now they're fixing that. But anyway, we don't have that company, so we're good. But anyway, what they're projecting out is, a residential gross assessed value increase of 3.8%, and then really looking at an annual change of 2.5%. So we are in good shape because it's actually positive growth. I mean, overall, when we take a look at the next slide, it doesn't look as positive. Now you're talking the gross and we're talking the net, okay? So over the next 5 years, we can expect our net assessed value to drop 3.4%. And that is essentially because of the different credits that are coming on, the different ways of assessing. All these things are having an impact on our net assessed value. Okay, so again, one of the reasons why we're having the discussions that we're having is because of this. So if the net assessed valuation is reducing, that reduces the number of dollars that we can recoup from our taxing units. The other side of that is, and this is just another graph that shows the bigger hits and how that is going to work.
Brian, what are they using for their assumption of values going up of property and farmland? Because if they don't continue to go up,
It could be
that never
worse.
used to be a real big problem.
It could be worse. And they're trying to use historical data over the last 10 years. If everything starts going south, this will all change. And let's hope it doesn't. But there's.
Because about 15 years ago.
Yeah, I remember. There was a big reset on everything, and
That would really throw these numbers off.
that would be devastating. Yeah, for us, that would be devastating.
I'm just making sure I'm following along.
No,
This is
you're
all
right.
just based on,
This is based on the trends from
Projection.
the last 10 years.
but
Yes.
And I think it's important to remember that we take the students and our daily attendance, all that, let's set that aside. This is the money that we need to operate the school, right? It's not our debt service,
Yeah.
it's not any of that. But when you see all the costs around us going up, but that net assessed value dropping down, that's the panic or the trigger, right? Is that energy continues to go up, those
Yes.
types of things, but the funding for those things is dropping off, especially into until 2031, so.
And then 2031 is their reset. So we start to see some growth in 2031. And again, this is just based on historical data. It could be different, could be better, could be worse, just depending on how it rolls. And honestly, that's the big thing. The projection is the big question mark. How do we project out the next few years? Who knows what's going to happen? So basically, I like this chart. It's probably my favorite one in the whole. Not the fact that we're losing money, but it does kind of show you where the hits are happening. Okay, so this dark blue This is the current circuit breaker. Okay, and then what they're calling are the unfunded credits. And they have unfunded credits for operations and unfunded credits for debt service. Now, let me give you this disclaimer. There is about a 90% chance the legislature will get together here in the next session, and all of that hit will come to the operations, because if that hit happens to our debt service, we're all going to default on our loans, because we will not be able to pay our payments. They're not going to let us do that, obviously, but they will be able to. So all of this will shift to operations in all likelihood. So as we're looking through here and we're looking at the money that, potentially that we could lose, we're looking at 1.5 for the next 10 years. Now, 1.5 million. Now that could be better, could be worse. There are some school districts out there that are in far worse shape than us. So it could be worse than what this looks like, but it also could be better. So hopefully, one of the remedies will be some tinkering. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot of that in this short session. And everybody who seems to know the legislature pretty well says it's probably not going to happen in this session. But I would say the 27th session could be another one where they do some major overhauls. So we'll see. Lots of things flying around out there. But what I can tell you is, and historically what they've never done is there's never been a complete replacement. So we will still stand to lose something. I mean, that's just not been the way they've operated in the past, but it might be better than what this looks. So one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about is a little bit kind of a change in philosophy. So we have always, and schools have been doing this really for the last 20 years. We have been so based on tax rate. So everything we talk about is tax rate. We want to stay under, 40 cents. We want to stay, we're going to increase the rate 3 cents. Well, we are going to have to change our philosophy more to a levy-based concept. So more of our discussions are going to be about the levy. So the levy would be the amount of dollars we have coming in. So if we, in the next few years, as we're talking about budgeting and as we're talking about setting up our budgets, more of it is going to be just based on the dollars that we need in our budget versus the rate we need to keep. So that's going to be a change in our part. And I'll show you why that's important. So if we stay with this slide just more or less says everybody's rates are going to go up because the assessed valuation is going to go down. So without issuing any further debt, our rates will go up, okay, in debt service and in our operations. So instead of, keeping ours at a sub $1 rate, the likelihood that it's going to go a little bit over $1 is pretty high, okay? But when we look at it right now, and we're looking at the full operations and debt service budget, what the rates are currently on average throughout the state is $1.02. They're anticipating that will go up to $1.37 statewide average. And again, that's with the idea of not issuing any further debt. That's maintaining everything as status quo. So long story short, because I can tell that this is a lot of information, I apologize. Long story short, we will tend to gain more revenue if we go to more of a rate-based philosophy versus, more of a levy-based philosophy versus a rate-based philosophy. So you're going to hear us talk more about that. So the levy is going to be the most important thing. Okay, this is what we have to levy in order to pay the bills. and what do we do to get there? Okay? And, our bills are gonna go up. It's not gonna be a constant figure. So, but that is the way that we are going to have to manage things in order for us to stay, to stay liquid in our funding. I mean, that's just really the only way that we can do that. So as we're moving forward, that's just the concept that we have to think about. This is just some basic, this is just showing some basic trend on the assessed valuation of farmland, and where that's going to be, capped. It does go up to, 2,540 at, in 2030, and then goes back down to, 2,340, which, that's some pretty cheap farmland. I mean, that probably can't buy that for, buy an acre for $2,000. But, anyway, that just kind of gives you an idea of how farmland is assessed and how that's going to move forward here over the next few years. And then, so this is the fixed rate levy. Look at the number down here, the 2316. That's the hit that we take, 2516, if we do like a 2% levy growth concept. If we do a step levy, it's 23, the impact will be 23.4% and 16% to debt, for an overall 16%, and then specified debt, which again provides the least amount of impact to us. So 22% is what we would lose versus the 23 and 24 with the other scenarios. But overall, unfunded credits would be about 16%, so 15%. So that would be where we are hit with all of the circuit breaker, all of the homestead credits, all the different ideas as far as that funding. Clear as mud? Okay. Anyway, hopefully it didn't confuse you more. Not my intent. Hey, we have some upcoming events going on though. Let's talk about some happy things. So we do have the tip off at the Inferno. That's on the 19th, Thanksgiving break. And then as we get into the Christmas season, we start with the choir and their Christmas concert on December the 8th. So, and then we have our meeting, and then there's a whole bunch of them after that. So I'll share that with you after the December meeting.
And in November, there's a junior mermaid swimming.
There is. I did not put the CTC, but that is an
We'll
awesome.
talk about that
yeah.
later.
All right.
That's an awesome.
All right.
That's an awesome one. Then approval of the course offerings. We talked a little bit about that. We're going to have to make some suggestions about course offerings, and then some end of year budget items, and then yay, January reorganization. So that's going to be coming up in the future as well. Now I'm going to shut up so Scott can talk.
Is there any opportunity to partner on these new course offerings and like get with Tri Central, get with Elwood, try and figure out if we offer this, is there any economy of scale here?
I think that there is, and I think particularly when you were talking about like a career counselor,
Yeah.
which is kind of what we need.
Yeah.
That would be the perfect opportunity to share.
Okay.
We probably don't need a full-time one.
Yeah, I just,
But we certainly could use a part-time that we could share with some other schools.
Yeah.
And I think those are the things we have to consider.
okay.
I do. And as far as, the mentoring with the enlistment side, I think that's a matter of maybe reaching out to recruiters' offices and just kind of see what the opportunities are. Maybe getting a retired military person to come in and do some of that work. Again, part of it is just really having to think outside the box.
Okay.
And no, but I would totally. I think those are things we have to do.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
would there be a requirement, certification, education for that person or not?
We would probably be able to do workplace specialist licensing for them. So if they're retired from military, they would fit all the requirements for a workplace specialist. Also, for the career counselor, typically they are not always school counselor trained.
Yeah.
So we may have to look at doing some different credentialing for them as well, but they would probably fit under the workplace specialist. Preferably, I would love to find a retired, I'm trying to relinquish this, a retired counselor There you go. A retired counselor that would be willing to come in and do some work in that area, potentially. So again, I think we have to think outside the box
Yeah.
on some of this. And again, I wish we had a bottomless pit of money to pay them, but,
Yeah, you covered that. We don't.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But it just makes it more challenging. So, all right. God.
Really set up for success tonight, being the last one presented at 7:45. So I will, I know you guys talk, so I will be as succinct as possible with all this. So this is just my Q1 data report. It's going to focus primarily on attendance, particularly how we're comparing to last year, and then our iLearn checkpoint number 1. We'll talk about the math and ELA results from that. So again, just real quick, our attendance goal at the beginning of the 24-25 school year, we established the following attendance goal: 80% of all TCSU students would be in attendance for at least 94% of the school year. So that is the goal we've set for ourselves. This is a visual representation of that goal and where we currently are at and our growth over the last 3 years. So again, we're just looking at Q1 from each of the last 3 years, including this year. We've gone from 73.5% to 74%. Now we're up close to 78%. Again, it's consistent growth as a district. That's my big takeaway. Very encouraging. Again, really reinforces the fact that all the work that we're putting into this, all the different policies, all the different procedures, they are making an impact. They are making a difference. If you want to see specifically, I know it's really small. If you are watching on YouTube with our live stream, we've actually linked these presentations, so you don't have to pretend that you're seeing what I'm talking about. You can actually pull this up on our website. But you can have it broken down by building. You can see, again, this is broken down by quarter, by building. Top left is the elementary. They fell just around 77.36%, so just below that district goal. Our middle school this year for the first time was above that in the first quarter, over 80, I believe it's 83% there. And then high school, we've actually seen a bit of a drop over the last couple of years. And we have conversations with each of our administrators at the end of each quarter. Dr. Glaze and I, we have conversations about their academic data, about their attendance data, about their discipline data. We look at the numbers, we try to make decisions and make adjustments based off what the data is telling us. And so this is always a big topic conversation. Obviously, huge celebrations from our elementary and middle school. And then naturally, you have those questions, okay, what's going on in high school? Let's go in the opposite direction of the other two. And so we've had that conversation. We talked about what are the different things that our high school is doing. And as Carrie explained a little bit earlier, you know, sometimes you run into some challenges when your seniors already have enough credits to graduate, and all of a sudden the drive to come to school every single day, particularly when you start getting into the winter, it's a little bit harder to do that. And I'll tell you, just breaking down by grade level, how our attendance looks for that high school, our junior class is actually doing pretty well. It's at 77.5% for our junior class, and that is our largest class at 138. Sophomore class is at 75%, meeting that goal of 94% attendance. Our freshman class are down at 70.8%, right? So again, there's a bit of a drop there for our freshman class, which is, again, fairly concerning. We're gonna have those kids for the next 4 years. And so having them start off their high school career at such a low rate, that is a primary focus of our team at the high school right now. And then again, our seniors at just over 70% as well. Again, you run into that senioritis, you run into what Carrie's talking about with how do we motivate kids to come to school when they've already got the credits they need. Those are things that we are still working through and the challenges we face. Again, we've had really great success in the recent past with our high school attendance. And I can assure you this is not a lack of effort. This is something that I know Mr. Lyda and Mr. Leach have regular conversations about. They share this with us. You know, when the state takes away some tools that we have to try to come up with some new tools on the fly. We have had some really good conversations with the prosecutor's office for some of our extreme cases. That is a really huge step in the right direction. Again, you know, like I said, when we have certain tools taken away from us, we have to reach out to some community partners to make sure that we leverage those to, again, try to get kids into school as much as possible. So real quick, because I could, like Dr. Blake said, with graphs, you could spend all day on these. This is, again, just a visual representation of the first quarter, 2024-25 on the top, and then this year, 25-26 on the bottom. The thing I want you to take away from this graph is what you're looking for in this graph is you want it to be low and you want it to be flat. Low means that you have really good attendance rates with your students. Flat means you have very consistent attendance rates with your students. If you have a bumpy graph that's up and up and down, that means you have a lot of kids missing, and you have kids who are in and out, in and out. So low and flat is what we're looking for here. What I find particularly interesting is when I change it to this, and you look at that big bump in 24-25 compared to where we are in 25-26, that relates specifically to fall break. I will tell you, last year, over the entire year, the two worst days of attendance at Tipton Community Schools was those 2 days before fall break. This board made the decision last year for this year to have a full week at fall break. So we eliminated that. And guess what? It works. When I showed you that first graph on the last slide, you couldn't have told me where fall break fell. Now that I've pointed it out, the difference that you see in the day before fall break started, which was Friday, and the day we came back, which was Monday, that falls pretty much in line with everything else. Like I said, it's low and it's flat. That is exactly what we're looking for attendance, and I think that's, again, just another piece of evidence that demonstrates how great we're doing with it, and it's in Tipton. Again, nowhere near perfect. We still have plenty of ways to improve. Eric, do you have any questions for me? Usually have a question related to day of the week, but I didn't pull up on.
Keep going, I have a question.
Costumes.
Costumes. Yes, I did. I meant to pull the Halloween data. I will have that. For
Well, you know how I stand on running out of candy at the end of the parade. We'll talk about that later.
These are things I want to make sure I understand. So that is attendance. If you have questions, write them down. I'll come back to them because I know we got one night ahead of us. Island checkpoint 1. So again, taking a look at this, the Island checkpoint is a short state-designed assessment that measures how well students are progressing towards those Indiana academic standards before they have that summative in April. We have 3 checkpoints, one in the fall, the winter, the spring, and the summative at the end of the year. Again, just a few important notes before we dive into the data. Again, this is our first run of the Island checkpoints. It wasn't required for this year. This is the first year it's required. Every school in the state, or every 3rd to 8th grade school in the state, is administering it this year. The checkpoints assess roughly 3 to 7 standards, depending on the grade, depending on the subject. Again, some of them in the middle school, a lot more of them are essential standards. In the elementary, you have fewer essential standards. The essential standards are the ones that students have to know that to be successful, not just within the year, but also in future years as well. And then to that point, I want to emphasize that these results are very much non-punitive. While you're going to see results all over the place in some of these cases, there is no accountability necessarily for this. This is all strictly informational for the school, for the student, for the parents to see, hey, this is roughly where your kid's progressing so far. There is still plenty of time for your kid ready to by the time. So again, keeping that in mind, we'll take a look. I'm going to read the graph to you, but I'll give you a few minutes while I kind of go through what this is supposed to be assessing. So in the elementary, students should move from decoding words to comprehending and analyzing complete ideas. Almost all of the standards that are assessed in checkpoint 1 are based in reading comprehension. Students should be able to read with accuracy, fluency, and purpose while beginning to think critically about what they read. By the end of 5th grade, students should be able to read fluently, summarize accurately, and explain how meaning is built within and across text. In grades 6 or 8, students should shift from understanding what a text says to analyzing how and why it conveys meaning. We call this shift from learning to read to reading to learn. They should build independence in evaluating evidence, structure, and perspective across diverse texts. So that's really the idea behind these numbers. Again, what we see is in our elementary, we're slightly above grade level in each of those. In our middle school, we are slightly below grade level in each of those. Again, you're looking at that graph. The green and blue represent your quote-unquote passing. The yellow and red represent the not passing. Yellow is approaching. Red is well below, blue is well above, green is just above. When I look at math, again, we see a similar story here. Again, you can see the state averages. You can see how our schools did and our grade levels did. Again, in elementary, students deepen their understanding of whole numbers, develop fluency with 4 operations, and begin exploring fractions, measurement, and early algebraic thinking. The emphasis is conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and applying to real-world context. In the middle school, students transition from concrete arithmetic to abstract mathematical reasoning. That's typically where you see a drop from 5th grade to 6th grade. You're going from those counting skills, those concrete mathematics skills, more abstract thoughts, more algebraic thinking. So you'll see that across the state. There's always this little drop, 5th, 6th grade. We can talk more about why there's the drop that we see right there for this particular standard or this particular grade level. But again, the focus here is to explore rational numbers, ratios, rates, maybe have them explain tax rates would be fantastic. We could all benefit from that. That's the kind of process and standards that go into these particular standards. My analysis from all this, so this is where I'm a little worried for a second. First off, this is again all formative data, which means it's intended to provide insight for our staff to make adjustments and improve teaching and learning. It's just a snapshot of where our students are at today and gives us direction on where we need to go in the future. While this is just a form of assessment, the checkpoint highlights some clear opportunities for improvement, both in math and ELA for all grade levels, especially our middle school. Our elementary ELA scores are meeting state averages, but we know that with curriculum adoptions, there's always an implementation dip related to achievement. The elementary is actually using this data to identify standards in need of remediation. That data will drive that elementary intervention period over the next few months. Again, the elementary also recently adopted a new curriculum. The funny thing, I had a conversation with our reading specialist, Jessica Higginbotham, this morning. The funny thing about the state recommended curriculum is when you follow that curriculum, it doesn't align to the standard being assessed on the ILM checkpoint. Hilarious, because we are assessing students on skills that we haven't necessarily taught yet. So like I said, when you look at some of this data, it's a huge grain of salt that needs to go with it, because it's not necessarily aligned to what was taught during that same time period. Now, that's not the case in every single for all the subjects. What I will say is that you have to be mindful that this data can sometimes lie, because again, when you're following what the state tells you, you're using the curriculum that they recommend, and you're following that with fidelity, it doesn't align to the same assessments that the state is putting out, you're going to get some of this kind of wonky data. So that's something that I kind of always put out so people are aware that be cautious with how you just read data at face value. The elementary, again, like I said, has those 4 years experience with the math curriculum. They've been able to adapt it. They've owned it. They know how to make it work. That's why our elementary math scores are really strong. And like I said, kind of the opposite of first year implementation with that reading curriculum. Finally, how we respond to this data is more important than what the actual results are. Both our elementary and middle school teams, again, have put in a comprehensive breakdown of their buildings data. I really want to compliment both the leadership at the middle school and elementary for that. I know when we got this data back, we had our quarterly assessment talks with both building principals. We had a serious conversation about what are these results telling us? We are clearly not satisfied with the results. What are we doing to get better? And so that's why I say, when it's more important about how we're going to respond to that. And our leaders, our instruction leaders, taking that data, giving it to our teachers, and using it at our most recent PD day last week. The teachers had lots of time. I'd say the majority of the time last Friday was spent on collaboration specifically for this type of assessment data in the elementary and middle school. A lot of the feedback, which I can share with you guys in one of my updates in the next month, based off of that PD, was very positive. A lot of feedback about it was incredible to be able to work with as much time as we had with our colleagues and be able to go through this data and make legitimate changes to what we're teaching and how we're teaching it. So again, like I said, this data, it's easy to kind of get nitpicky, be like, well, I'm really not happy about that, or I'm going to point the finger about this. One thing I really want to emphasize is that it's a formative assessment and that our teachers are taking this data seriously and using it to make real change. So again, can't sing the praise enough of the response we've had to this. We're also investing in both our middle school math team. They recently visited Brownsburg, which is the school district that has the highest scores on ILM over the last decade, basically, and kind of learn how they do things and what is it that makes them separate from the pack. So we have some good strategies. And then, like I said, we're also investing pretty heavily in our middle school ELA team to go to a national conference to kind of learn some strategies that can better meet the needs of our students there. So that is my presentation in a nutshell. Got done before 8 o'clock. Just again, a final note, our next round of iLearn, it'll be sometime in the winter here, either December or January. It's important to note that Checkpoint 2 measures completely different standards from Checkpoint 1. So when I give you the data on Checkpoint 2, it's not a growth to this. it's apples and oranges. So, with that said, does anyone have any questions about iLearn?
Did you happen to see if there was a correlation between students below proficiency on the iLearn and grade?
That's a great question, and I would need to put that together. I don't have it together yet. What I would find interesting about that would tell us a couple of things. I would say one, and it's actually a conversation we had with this when we met with the principals, is the level of rigor that we are teaching our students matching what they see on the assessments. Which I think is exactly what you're getting at with, do the grades match what the iLearn's given us? And that was the main conversation we had. When we broke down the data, and again, kudos to our two teams for doing that. It actually shows our students do really well at the low grade level questions and do fairly well at the approaching level questions. But when you start getting into those questions that measure at proficiency or above proficiency, not great. And that to me tells me that we're teaching like the foundational basics, but we are not kind of pushing our kids to hold those high expectations to that next level. That is the challenge that we put before front of our teachers at a PE day is what do we need to do? What type of questions do we need to ask? Because the resources are there, we have them, and they were shared by our leadership. What are those changes that need to be made in order to get our kids to that next level? Because if we don't expose our kids to higher level questions, how can we expect them to ever achieve at those higher levels? So again, that's a great point. I haven't gone through and correlated directly for the grades in iLearn, but
I was curious, I'll just tell you. My sixth grader has an A in ELA, and it said he has a 1% chance of being proficient by the end of the year. It's concerning to me.
Yes, and my wife had the same reaction because she was like, "Explain this to me," and I'm like, "Okay, first off, I'm not taking those projections at face value because, again, I could go all night on this, but I would say it goes back to what was taught over the course of that first quarter, and understand that that is just a now. What we do is we provide, if students really are struggling, we have 7 months to provide intervention for them. Now that we have this data now, as opposed to waiting until April to realize, oh, we missed the boat on these standards, we can make those adjustments. We can make those changes. That's why last Friday's PD day was so critical. It's eye-opening for our staff, and it really emphasized, hey, this isn't good enough. What we're doing, we need to step up. So I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
So parents on our data, it was kind of predictive, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was kind of a surprise to me. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if it's me or if there just hasn't been great communication from the state regarding how that data is going out because the way it was totally different this year, right? So we didn't send out the data. We gave contact information and the state sent out the data themselves to parents. And then we followed up with that, hey, here's what's coming, here's what we need to enter. As far as it giving a prediction of how students are going to do, that was news to me. I had not heard of that. That was very helpful.
Well, and I'm just saying
Yeah.
to give a
You're saying
prediction
someone called you?
1%.
the very first,
I'll say
to give the first time that
strange.
they give them the
It's
test.
very
and-
confusing, and that's something that I need to take a little more time to look into because that caught me off guard.
But what we see on this is their actual proficiency on grade
Yes,
level
on
standards.
on those particular standards, for this, 7 standards or 5 standards, whatever it was, to learn, that's the proficiency level of those students there. So I think that the state student is taking that and projecting it out to April, saying, this is where we think, based off of the results.
And then the final assessment, will they check back in on some of the,
Yeah, so the final assessment, it will not cover every standard that's assessed throughout the year. It will cover the essential standards, and it'll cover some of the standards prior. It's an adaptive test, so again, it's going to vary which questions. I'll be interested to see, I need to do a little more research on if it's gonna give different students different standards. I don't think that's the case, but I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you for sure, not right now. But yeah, it's a shorter test than what they are typically used to. It's shorter than last year's iLearn assessment, but it's longer than these checkpoints. And also, these checkpoints are also just the computer adaptive questions, like choose all that apply, whatever, like that choice. And it's just for English and math. When we get to the summative at the end here, it's going to include your social studies in 5th grade, and include science for 4th and 6th grade and 5th. Does there's a lot to it, and I apologize, I didn't have what we were talking about.
But I think I do think, I just have to question the ability to predict when this is
I-
the
like
very
I said,
first
I can't
year
wait to
it's
dig
rolled
into it.
out. I just don't even know how in the world you would be able to make that connection, but maybe somebody smarter than me.
If you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out.
All right. Inside your packets were the department reports from Adam and Scott and Stephen, and then also from Colin, if you had a chance to review those. The pasta looked very good. I would tell you that, Adam, a nice picture. But if there are any questions, you can follow up with them individually. With that being said, Brooke will move on to the financial report from you.
I will be very quick. For October, education finished the month with $1,094,397.82. Operations fund, $442,690.97. Debt service, $1,058,261.09. And the rainy day fund was restored and now has a balance of $2,003,833.41. Education revenue for the month was the, of course, basic support grant and 3 months worth of the lit payments, which totaled $47,326.74. Sold devices, so the buyback produced proceeds of $26,265, and then miscellaneous other reimbursements and fees. Interest for the month was $16,740.35. And GeoBond proceeds were received on October 23rd, and both operations and rainy day were restored. And we have requested an advance draw, should have that by the end of the month from the county.
Any questions for Brooke? All right. The only thing I would add to that is if you look at that lit tax payment that we get from the county, that is going away from us, right? So as we start that part of this SCA one is we lose that. So we're gonna, when Dr. Glaze was talking about things that never coming back to the former way. So there needs to be conversations with on how to recoup that or mitigate as much of that as possible. But we're thankful for it, but don't get used to seeing it in the packet. So any old business that the old business that we have is the second reading and adoption of batch 8 of the CCHA board policies. The following policies are presented for second reading. We do need approval for patch 8 policies. This does contain our revised policy on the adjunct teachers, and I know we've worked through that, and I just wanted to thank everybody for the good communication on that back and forth. The internal controls, use of credit cards, collection, forgiveness of debt, unpaid meal policy, investment income, time and effort, debt management, cash balance and liquidity, and any criminal organization activity. We have a policy for that. So just throwing that out there, if anybody's involved in that, this is the time to get out of it.
For the record, we're not pro.
No.
It's
Anti.
Okay, just want to get on the record.
And then also in your packet, remember when we were doing all this policy adjustment, we are retiring a ton of those old Neola policies, so those are listed in there as well. So I would entertain a motion and a second to approve upon second reading batch 8 of the CCHA policies.
I move to approve batch number 8 upon second reading. Board policies.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the batch 8. Any questions or further conversation? All those in favor of approving batch 8 upon second reading, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Batch 8 is approved. Thank you. On new business, we have, before I get started on this, I do see Allison now that everybody's
she's
left.
back there.
She wasn't in her normal seat and I panicked. I wanted to take a really brief opportunity. It's the second time I've gone through contract with the Teachers Association. It's just a great process. We have a wonderful, wonderful relationship and a group of people. Mr. Ireland, I see back there as well. And I won't say anything publicly to Mrs. Cole because she's my daughter's teacher and that would look bad, but no. But I did want to say we really don't have the issues that other districts have in these negotiations, and I wanted to thank thank you publicly for that, since you've taken the time to show up tonight for the ratification. So on September 9th, we convened a public hearing to announce the beginning of our formal bargaining. On November 3rd, a public meeting was held to announce that a tentative agreement where details of the agreement were shared with the community, along with the opportunity for any public comment. The total increased cost to the education fund in the new contract is $146,300. I need a motion to ratify the 25-26 collective bargaining agreement between TCSC and the TEA.
I move to ratify the 25-26 collective bargaining agreement between our corporation and the
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the contract. All those in favor of approving the contract, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Contract is ratified. Thank you very much. The collective bargaining is ratified now, and we're recommending a one-time stipend of the remainder of the staff. There's a detailed breakdown of the recipients that was included in your packet. The 10-month hourly employee stipend of $500 for full-time and $250 for part-time. There's a 12-month hourly employee stipend for $1,500 and 12-month contracted and administration employee stipend of $2,250. The total cost of the one-time stipend, including the taxes and the retirement, is $10,226.75. To receive the stipend, the employee must be employed by us for a minimum of 90 calendar days and actively employed with us on December 1st of 2025. So I would need a motion and a second to approve the remaining stipends as included in your packet.
I move to approve the remaining staff one-time stipends.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the stipends. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, stipends are approved. There's nothing for us tonight. This is first reading on batch 9. So please look at that in all of your spare time, which I'm sure is just loads of it. But we will be looking for second reading and approval on this in our December meeting. And then the next item on the agenda is the recommendation for the GO bonds, the remaining GO bonds, as we detailed through some of the work that's being done earlier on the roof. That project is going well, continues to run ahead of schedule. At this time, we have approximately $400,000 available from the bond proceeds, and the administration has recommended some additional projects. We're recommending 3 projects that include the playground at $266,000, the pool deck at $86,000, and the auditorium sound system replacement, which is $80,000. But it'll be lower than that, but I think that's what we're, as the bids are coming in. But these projects are much needed improvements for TCSC and will serve us well for many years. Detailed information on those is included in your packet. So before I move for a motion or anything like that, just open it up for questions from the board on those projects. We've been chasing this pool deck for several years. The playground is something we've talked about for a while. And the sound system in the auditorium is the original. And it's really, so those were the 3 that kind of bubbled kind of to the top.
I believe the pool deck is the original too.
I think the
It
pool
is.
deck
Pool
is
deck
the
is
original. So,
It is.
okay. Well, if there's no comment
No,
on
I
it.
have a comment. With all the budget problems we have, this extra money in the GO bond, do we have 3 years to spend it? Like we did with the transportation money?
We do have 3 years to spend it.
And are there,
Time.
what kind of limits on what we can spend it on?
As long as it's a capital improvement, it can be spent on a capital. You can't use it for salary or benefits like that.
But it could help with the operation budget if it was a capital.
As long as it's a capital improvement. So as long as it would be like a boiler or a AC or any kind of like a air handler.
Here's just my thought. not about any of these individual projects. My thought is to hold on to the money until we find out how this is gonna shake out in a year. Is the referendum gonna pass? Are we gonna have enough money? Are we gonna need this money as like almost a rainy day fund for operations for some big project? If in a year we're fine, then we can do some of these things. Or maybe we could do the pool deck, which seems to be a really big problem. And if we can't have the pool without it, whatever, you tell me. I'm just very hesitant to spend this money when we're facing a very uncertain future financially and of how it looks. Someone comes by the school and we're doing a new elementary playground, and at the same time, we're saying we don't have any money. I just think if it was our business, and I know it's different, we would be looking at this differently. And I know if it was in a perfect world, I'd put the money back.
Sure.
You know, we borrowed too much, right? Essentially, because the project was for the roof and the chiller. I'm just very concerned about the perception, and I'm concerned about the financial. Could that money sit there for a year and be there if we need it? I mean, if the referendum doesn't pass, or the state legislature, you said maybe in 27 they can fix it. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll do something in 26 if people cry loud enough. I would really rather have that money on hand just in case.
On any of these three items that are listed, is there a timing? Is there, I mean, timing on some of them, whether we approve it tonight versus a month from now, are we waiting, is there something that we are committed to or that we've, on any of these three items?
I would say a month is not gonna make a difference.
No, but we did commit to the playground. I mean, we have the down payment ordered to be done by this summer.
When you say we committed to the playground, who? We didn't vote on anything.
We used the remaining dollars from the elementary, 360,000 that we had, plus the money that we had from grants, and we basically bought the equipment because we wanted to avoid the cost increase of the equipment. They were guaranteeing us that price, so we cut that PO with those remaining funds in, I think it was May or June last year, somewhere around. So that was just basically the down payment essentially for that. Now, what we haven't paid for is the surface, the labor, all of that. So basically, we just have the equipment that's been being stored in their warehouse. But
So what's the total bill for this playground? I thought it was like 300,000.
total bill is, I think, over $600,000. So we're getting 200,000 from the Community Foundation, and we're getting, or the Tippin Foundation, and we're getting 100,000 from Tesso and Campbell Family Foundation. And then we had 160,000. So the 266 is what's left over.
I'll just say, those outside organizations that have given money or promised money have seen what the plans are. So to change those now, I don't think would be fair to those organizations who may not have committed that money. I know Tesla was a big one that said, we don't want to commit unless they go all out and actually do the playground correctly. So I think they would be one that might say, we don't want our money to go to that. Then you have Campbell's who are gonna match another, part of Tesla's money potentially for more money, so. And the foundation, again, what they've presented this whole plan, so that would become difficult to change, go back and change what we were. planning to
Yeah, I
do.
thought we were gonna be able to do it with the donated money and the leftover money. I never heard $600,000 as a number. I heard 300 and some thousand. So I don't know, did we talk about that here? Was it a committee?
Yeah, we've had that conversation, and particularly when we were receiving those grants, we had that conversation. This is what the full dollar figure was, and that these would offset. Now, the 300,000 may be what we were talking about, because that would make sense with the 266 and the 160 that we had from the school, around that 300,000 level. And, you know, initially when we were gonna do this, before we had all of the electrical issues that we had to fix as part of the building project, we had budgeted 500,000 for the playground, which is a pretty typical cost of a, you know, regular K-5 playground. But then we went ahead and added areas for the preschool, which is what increased the cost. So we were only, at one point, we were just gonna keep the preschool playground as it was, and the foundations, they wanted it all, they felt like all of it could be replaced, so you have more of an immersive environment. That preschool kids, they don't have their own little area, they can actually be on all of the equipment because of the design.
I'm just,
No,
I don't think it looks good.
I think you have a valid point, I'm not saying that you don't.
Well, is there any other comment on it? No, we'll put it to a vote, but I mean,
So are we voting to allocate the money? Is that what we're?
I'm just, we have remaining money from the GO bond and we have projects and have those prioritized. So this would be to execute on that. And I do share, I don't necessarily share your concern, because I know when we're talking about other financing options, we're talking about the operations of the school. These are capital projects. And so I think we can talk to the public about that if we're honest about it.
I think it's a hard explanation. People don't understand. Rob, we've been here 3 years. I still don't understand all the details of school financing. So I'm talking about the optics. I'm not talking about what we know about how money is operated, right? I understand that. I'm just concerned about how that looks.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put it to a vote, and we'll take it from there.
I mean, is it a bad choice if we table it for a month, or do you feel like we've already had adequate time? I mean, I know we've had it in our packet for sufficient time.
I don't know that a month changes optics
Understand.
or whatever. I think at the end of the day, you know, we didn't encounter the bumps in the road that we thought we were going to have on the roof, and we have leftover money.
Okay.
We should take care of some things in the school that were original equipment in the
Yep.
school. And if the public wants to hang me for that, then they can go right ahead, right?
Yeah, no, I'm
That-
not
Brady,
trying to
I-
see you hang.
Question on that. What if we hadn't had this money left over? What would we have done about the playground?
It would have stayed the way it
It would
is.
have stayed the way it is. And we'd have had to tell the foundation no, and several foundations no, and TESO and things of that nature.
So I'm just offering an option in between where we wait, right? That's all I'm saying is for optics. This,
Sure.
I mean, for a point of discussion, so.
How long do you want to wait?
Well, when are we doing the polling?
I think it's gonna be before June, so I'm guessing April, March, April. That's purely a guess, Eric. I mean, we haven't talked about it, but that's purely a guess. I would say March, April. Does that seem about right to you guys? Because I know we have to make a decision by June.
Right.
And then what's our contractual obligation to the stuff that we've already purchased?
Well, I mean, what it will do is if we wait that long, we'll lose our place as far as
Getting it
getting it
installed.
installed in summer. Right now, you know, we're guaranteed the first summer slot they have. It's gonna take about 3 weeks to tear out, put back in. So honestly, and I'm not trying to be fatalist or anything, probably we'll be looking at the next summer. Just because I want to be able to use the playground and winter is
I understand all the.
No, 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 no. Yeah, I'm just
And
putting
look,
it.
when this came up through April, May, whatever, I wasn't that concerned about it. But now that we're facing what we're facing, the reality of those 30 slides and what between now and 2031 we're facing, I just think it just changes things.
Did you have a timeline for the pool deck and the system replacement?
The pool deck, we can't do anything until after the season. So basically looking at what we did last year where we drained the pool in March, and probably April, May would be when they would replace the deck. The sound system, there's probably not a real definite time that has to be done. I would say that's probably more of a summer project because of the fact that at some point they're gonna have to tear down the old and put up the new. And honestly, our auditorium is used all the time. It's one of the most used facilities we have. So the summer would make the most sense.
Listen, I'm not trying to strong arm the vote. I just want
No,
us to
no,
think about what we're doing here, what we're facing, and like I said, the optics of it. How does that look? Rob, you don't seem to think it's a problem.
I am 100% ready to defend the optics of the decision, right? Like SCA one was sent to us, we need to respond to it. If a referendum is gone after and it's defeated, then we've got all these other levers we need to pull to reduce the cost of the school. But $400,000, when you're looking at $1.5 million, doesn't make the optics of it any better. That's just me, and I'll defend that, right? Like, so I'll call for the vote, and if it's a bad thing, then they can bring their pitchforks to Market Road. So, I mean, it's fine.
You get my point. It's hard to
I-
explain,
100%.
it's hard to explain the financing.
I would disagree that it's hard to explain the financing. I have dedicated countless hours with policy analytics, ISBA, all these people understanding the ramifications of SCA and what's going to happen to us. I don't think the difference between success and failure is a playground and a pool deck. And we should invest in these things and hope to God that they do the right thing and fix it in the larger assembly. But you can't be guaranteed of that. So I'm ready to defend the decision to keep moving, not wait another year or half a year to do this. But I don't agree that the optics are that bad. So, I mean, we have all kind of optics going on in the city right now, and nobody's showing up at those meetings upset. So I'm ready to invest in the kids and the building, and I'm fine with it. So. And I'm not trying to strong arm the vote either. I'm just trying to keep things moving while we have our alternator here and we have people engaged and that kind of thing. And I'm very worried about a relationship with the foundation and other foundations where if we keep kicking the can on this playground and things like that, we're going to lose some goodwill that we've spent years and years building. I'm worried about those optics. So, but. And I'm not trying to strong arm you or the vote or any of that. I understand it as well, but.
Okay, I'm not trying to make this difficult. I feel a little embarrassed. I feel, after hearing some of what Eric said, some of our conversation, can we as a board table this for a month? I would just like a little bit of time to review this, if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, if it's not like changing drastically some form of dates, if we could make this vote in December, I think I would like that additional time.
I don't think a month makes a difference. I mean, personally, I don't think it. I mean, if you guys want the next month to think about it, that's not something that's going to be detrimental.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I would have maybe had a few more conversations with members of the board prior to this meeting. I think that would have been a good idea on my behalf. I wish I would have. So if that's okay, I would like to table it till December.
Everybody good with that? Okay. It is tabled. The next item on our agenda is the declaration of surplus equipment. There's a few items from the Transportation and Maintenance Department to declare as surplus. One of them is a golf cart that only turns left. I thought that was entertaining. But these items will be recycled or sold for scrap. So a detailed list of items is in our packet. I'd look for a motion and a second to declare that surplus equipment.
I move to declare the surplus of equipment.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second to declare the surplus equipment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And then in late December, the DLGF will issue our Form 1782, which will confirm the rates and the levy in accordance with our 2026 budget. In our packet is a resolution allowing the superintendent to reduce appropriations from the 2025 budget in any or all funds as appropriate and necessary to help achieve the balanced budget for 2026. If you all recall, we do this on an annual basis. So I'd be looking for a motion and a second to approve the additional resolution for the 2026 budget.
I move to approve the additional resolution for the 2026 budget.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the additional resolution, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, motion is approved. And then annually, the board is asked to pass a resolution allowing for the transfer of funds. The resolution authorizes the treasurer of Tipton County or Tipton Community School Corporation to, on a monthly schedule, transfer an amount not to exceed $145,652 from the education fund to the operations fund to reimburse the operations fund for expenses that are not allocated to student instruction and learning under Indiana Code 20-42-5. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the monthly transfer from the ed fund to the operations fund.
I move to approve the monthly transfer from the education fund to the operation fund.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of the monthly transfer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. The other matters to come before the board is we have the monthly advisory committee update on Monday, November 17th. The expense reduction review committee is meeting again at 4 p.m. And the upcoming schedule of events is again, 19th is the tip-off at the Inferno. The 21st through the 23rd, I would say, is the Little Mermaid Junior.
Yes.
Sorry, everybody should go see that. November 26th to the 28th is Thanksgiving break. December 8th is the middle school, high school choir Christmas concert. The next is December 9th, which is our next meeting. December 10th is the middle school, high school band Christmas concert. And the December 16th is the YO Family Night concert. And December 19th ends the last day of the second grading period. And finally, on December 20th, we enter our winter break. So that is the upcoming schedule of events. I'd be looking for a motion and a second to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the November meeting.
All right, thank you.
I want to say December.
Got a second on that?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.